Hey y'all, Kenny here with a Nikon 3x9x40 rifle scope. This is the P223. It has the exposed turrets. I bought this used sight unseen. In hindsight, it wasn't a very good idea. Long story short, the scope has an accuracy issue and the focus is off. So I'm going to take it apart and see if I can do anything for it. I am not a scope repair technician, but I am a world-class cobbler. I'm of the opinion if somebody made it, it can be fixed. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not, but be forewarned, if you take one of these apart, you could end up with an expensive paperweight. I've already taken this scope apart up to the point of pushing the Erector out to save time. You start up here at the objective lens. This is, by the way, where you adjust your parallax. It had this little cover, screwed that off, then the lens just screws out of the scope tube. You can make a wrench to do that. There are two slots in the lens housing. There's the objective lens. Back the turrets all the way out. The magnification ring on this one had this rubber cover. It was glued on, and I took my time and worked. I was a little rough on it, but I salvaged the cover and I can glue it back on. There was a single screw that holds the mag ring on, and then it'll just push off two O-rings to seal this portion of the scope up. All that was easy. When I got to the rear of the scope at the ocular lens, that's when things got dicey. This thing was locked up as tight as Fort Knox. The ocular lens has a fast focus feature, the diopter, and it had this little rubber cover. It's glued on as well, and I was able to work and get that cover off without doing it any damage. Inside there was a nut, a spanner nut I call it. It had two slots in it, threads on the outside, and the purpose of that nut is just to stop this ocular lens from being screwed out of the scope tube. So I made a socket to fit in those slots out of an old piece of pipe. I had to cut a section out of the pipe because I couldn't find anything exactly the inside diameter as this fast focus, the ocular lens. And so I cut a slot out and used a hose clamp to adjust it for size, and I made with a hacksaw the two little pieces that would fit into these slots. I heated this scope up all the way to 350. I was afraid to go any further, and I could not break that nut loose. Eventually I stripped the little slots out in the nut where I could no longer put any pressure on it. And so I just made an improvised hole saw, and I took the drill and I cut the nut out. Here's the remains of the nut. The nut's not really necessary. Again, all it does is acts as a stop for your ocular lens. Now, I've done this before on another scope, and so there was no doubt that I could do it without damaging this one, with the exception of skinning up the paint a little bit. But once that nut is out, the ocular lens will just thread right out of the scope. It's obvious to me that this entire rear bell should be threaded onto this tube, otherwise there's no way to get this mag ring on the tube. But I heated this bell to 350 degrees, which is much hotter than I normally would heat a scope up. I used two strap wrenches, one to hold the scope tube, the other to turn this bell. I had a lot of leverage and this thing would not budge. So that is the reason that I approached disassembly the way I did, by removing that spanner nut and removing the ocular lens. Your experience with this may be different than mine. Removing the ocular lens revealed another nut down inside the tube. To get that out, I made a tool. It has slots just like the objective lens and the stop for the ocular lens. This is just an old piece of a metal bracket like you would use to hold decking together. And I cut it to width I had to file it just a little bit so it would fit in that slot. Let me get turned around here so I can get in the slot. I'll screw that nut out. The only purpose I see for this nut is to narrow the field of view. I thought this would hold the erector in, but it does not. Removing that piece revealed two screws that hold the reticle in, and you can see in the photo there, you also see the little spanner nut that holds the erector in the scope tube. Here is the reticle and the two little screws that I took out. If you touch the reticle, you will break it. This is a wire reticle. To remove the nut that holds the erector in, I had to again make a tool. This is that lumber bracket material. In order to get it the right size, I made a template out of cardboard because the width had to be exact or it would damage these threads in the scope tube itself. I also had to apply heat, and I've applied heat to every one of these nuts that I've removed except for the objective lens. I used a propane torch to do that. Once you get up around 275, 300, you'll soften the thread locker that holds these nuts in place, and they'll come out. Without the heat, you'll most likely strip the nuts. If you keep moving with the torch, you won't hurt the finish on the scope tube. Let's take the erector out. Well, I didn't expect that. It fell right out. There's a spring in here, if I can find it. Well, it's locked in, and I'm not going to bother getting it out. Scopes use a flat spring. I like that that one stayed in. It'll make loading this thing easier. This is the nut that held the erector in. You see the two slots that my tool fit into. I have found these nuts loose in a scope, and remember, we're only talking about thousandths of an inch of movement to affect the accuracy of a scope. I failed to mention that there was this screw in the tube, and the only purpose of that is to fit into the erector, and it just aligns the position of the erector inside the tube. So on the rear of the erector you have a ball and socket, and this portion just articulates on that ball, and of course the front is resting against your turrets. Then you have your spring that is keeping this pushed tight against the turrets. The erector works by having this two sets of lenses inside. These little nylon bushings and screws are the followers for the lenses, and as you turn your magnification ring, you change the distance between the two lenses, and that changes your magnification. So what is wrong with this scope? Well, there is no smoking gun. Sometimes I'll find this nut on this ball and socket loose, but that doesn't seem to be the case with this one. Sometimes these turret screws are not machined to very close tolerances. That could be the case here. When you fire the rifle under recoil, the erector jumps and doesn't return to its original position. That can be improved by adding some erector springs. Most scopes come with only one. Some of your better scopes will have two. I add a couple helper springs to all my scopes when I take them apart, and so I'm going to try that with this one and see if that will solve the problem. I made the helper springs using an automotive feeler gauge. Those are 16 thousandths thick. I've installed the erector with the springs in place. If you're interested in knowing how to make those, check out part 2 of my do-it-yourself scope repair video, and you can see those actually being made. The erector is installed with the alignment screw. Next, I need to install the nut that holds the erector in the tube, and you can put a few drops of thread locker on that. Again, it requires a lot of heat to soften that thread locker to remove the nut. An alternative to that is maybe 3 drops of super glue around the perimeter of this nut. Once you get it tight, then I'll install the reticle, exercising a lot of caution because it's really easy to damage. That erector did have slotted holes, if you notice, and so I have made a mark to align the reticle so it's not leaning left or right. It needs to be perfectly in line with your turrets so that the scope will track properly at longer distances. Once that's all in place, I'll put this piece in, and this is just to cover up the working parts of the scope. I can then install my ocular lens. I need to remove this piece of remaining nut here. Again, that nut's only purpose is to keep you from screwing this out, and if your vision is so bad that you have to run this all the way out to focus it, you need to see an optometrist immediately. Then I'll put the objective lens in, and I describe how to set the scope up in part 3 of my do-it-yourself scope repair video, so I won't be redundant here, but check that out to get your parallax adjusted correctly and adjust your ocular lens. Of course, the mag ring's installed with a single screw. I won't glue any of this rubber back into place until I'm certain the scope is going to work okay and that I won't have to revisit this repair. When I do get it back together and mount it on a rifle, I'll test it out. I'll post a video, good or bad. So if you're not a subscriber, go ahead and do that now. Thanks again for watching.